Welcome, everyone. I'll do it again. Welcome, everyone. I now call this regular meeting of the KCRHA Governing Committee to order. We start by grounding our work in our theory of change, which is if we create a homeless response system that centers people with lived experience, then we will be able to focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequities in order to end homelessness for all. This is a hybrid meeting, as all of our meetings will be going forward, so there is a physical location as well as virtual access. I want to thank Mayor Nancy Backus and the City of Auburn for letting us borrow their chambers today. Sean, could you please take the roll?
Sure thing, Chair. Executive Dow Constantine.
Here.
Councilmember Joe McDermott.
Here.
Councilmember Claudia Balducci.
Here.
Felicia Salcedo. Pharrell Horton. Roosevelt McWhorter.
Here.
Mayor Angela Burney.
Here.
Councilmember Ed Prince.
Here.
Mayor Nancy Backus.
Here.
Councilmember Andrew Lewis. Mayor Bruce Harrell.
Carolyn is here.
Apologies, Mayor.
No worries.
Councilmember Lisa Herbold. Five, six, seven, 8.
For the record, this is Lamont Green. I'm here serving as an alternate until Felicia and Pharrell can be confirmed in as official government board members.
Thank you for that, Lamont. And with that, Chair, we do have quorum.
One note, I'm sorry, I see Councilmember Lewis appears to be here, but in the attendees. Sean, if you could promote him, please.
And I believe Felicia Salcedo is here as well. I don't know if she can be promoted to the panel as well.
And so did anyone else get Jonathan Hemphill's? He didn't receive any information regarding today's governing committee or login information.
My understanding, Mayor, and Lamont could speak more to this, but my understanding is that Jonathan has no longer representing the LEC on this body. Lamont, is that correct?
Yes, Mark, that is correct.
Okay. Well, I believe Jonathan sent it to all of us. So I just received it. So I just wanted to make note of that.
All right, thank you. We now have 10 minutes for public comment. If you wish to comment or have not already added your name and city to the chat box or signed up in person, please do so now. Each person will have 2 minutes to comment, and we ask that the comments be related to today's agenda. We will start with the people on Zoom and then move to the people in the room and move to the people in the room. Public comment is now open. Sean, please call on people for public comment.
Thank you, Chair. First up, we have Scott Schubert with the YMCA of Greater Seattle.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time being able to share with each of you guys. So I'm here representing the YMCA of Greater Seattle, and part of that is the YMCA has a social service branch called the Y Social Impact Center, who houses more than 450 youth and young adults per night throughout King County. And so far in 2022, we've served about 1,800 individuals. We've had a significant presence in South King County, which includes a youth shelter, a young adult shelter, and multiple housing sites. A couple reasons we wanted to share today is that, we've greatly expanded over the past 2 years, many of times without funding guarantees. So in the last years, we've had to change 4 of our facilities away from serving youth and young adults experiencing homelessness to providing services with other vulnerable young adults with more stable and secure funding streams. Additionally, programs right now are at risk of because of insufficient local operating dollars. And as you guys are reviewing the budget today, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. So we are requesting that RHA seek input from provider community about programmatic funding gaps to ensure that we do not take a step backwards. We need new initiatives are needed, and we must stabilize existing programs so that we can have new initiatives that make a difference in our community. Currently, we are the only young adult shelter in South King County, so in Auburn area, which in the month of November alone, we have reached 110% capacity, but the funding level is insufficient to meet this demand. With the 5-year plan, we are talking about expanding services, but we also need to ask the governing board to focus on first funding the existing programs at an appropriate level. We also just want to note that we've experienced difficulties with contracting and invoicing with KCRHA. We understand that there are staffing challenges and new systems for the RHA to navigate. However, operating without contracts and delayed payments puts nonprofits in a very tough position. We've been operating one program for over 5 months without existing contract. And I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of this as you guys are making your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Bill Curlin Hackett from the city of Auburn.
Greetings and thanks to all of you. I'm Bill Curlin Hackett. I direct vehicle residency outreach under the Regional Authority in Seattle and continue to direct the Interfaith Task Force on Homelessness. Budget season is just ending and you'll consider that topic today, but funding is only half the reality of the effort to end homelessness. The other reality is what transpires on the streets. Those places are governed by law, by code, by ordinances. The awful situation right now, and in fact for dozens of years, is that the money allocated to us too often goes to address the harm being exercised by the laws and so on. The axiom do no harm is not a common agreement in our efforts to end homelessness. We hear about law and order, and any order aimed at safety for all is slighted. Even now with sub-freezing weather, we cannot even get sweeps of vehicles to abate. We cannot get pilot projects such as nesting off the ground because we're hearing the code in Seattle will not allow it. We hear constantly from the regional authority it doesn't enforce or recommend sweeps. So I wonder, why isn't this governing board saying that and insisting the 39 cities in this county and county itself aim toward that goal? Why are you silent about sweeps? Why just approve a budget today for what is aimed at funding what we will have to use on the streets to alleviate the harm of sweeps? This is a question raised every Wednesday morning in our outreach meeting with 70 or so outreach staff. Why do sweeps fail to offer adequate shelter? We hear all these questions. I've heard the claim denied by leadership that there is shelter offered. In fact, we know it's not in every case, not in enough cases. Yes, approve the budget because this effort requires funding. But please understand, we will all fail to make progress if the regional authority is content to keep paying us to fix the harm being delivered every day by jurisdictions. We're on your side. This is not law and order, this is doing harm. The isolating, stigmatizing, criminalizing, and abandoning cannot continue. Please, let's talk more to meet the needs of jurisdictions and those of us paid to save the vulnerable on the streets. And I especially ask this of you, Mayor Harrell. I would love to sit with you and have coffee, tea, whatever. We have to work together. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. And next I have Mark Robinson, who is coming from the Miracle Village in Tukwila.
Good morning, everyone. Mayor Harrell and fellow council members. My name is Mark Robinson. I'm with Lehigh, the Low Income Housing Institute. I am the village operations manager for the one of the sites that just opened up in Tukwila in October. I've been with the organization now for about 4 months, and already the village has seen quite success. We've had, since opening on October 20th, we've had 7 residents move into permanent housing. We currently have 2 that are awaiting to go into temporary housing. And, you know, with being able to have this opportunity to speak to you guys, I just wanted to say that the program works. The tiny house villages are only getting a 2% of the funding, and it's not enough. You know, there has been pushback in previous years, but, you know, my village, I've seen success. And it really is a testament to, you know, to the program in itself, but also for, you know, the residents that come into the program, that they really want to make a change. They really want to go from being homeless to having stability, and being in the village. They've really been able to start to, you know, they have the code of conduct, and it builds structure from the day they come in until the day they get into temporary housing and then permanent housing. You know, I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to also share that, you know, I've got to help open the other village that's opened up in Riverton recently as well, and they're already seeing a success as well. So the program works. It's nothing that was perfect in the beginning, but I can say that the program is one that would do better, and it would benefit the city and the area if there were more tiny house villages. And I have 2 other individuals that I put on the list as well that are here with me to speak.
Good morning. My name is Denny Adams. On the meeting today as a resident of our village. Try to make it real short. I have also seen a lot of success here, and also in the last few years working with and being part of other initiatives in Seattle. I see this working in a short amount of time for folks because we do housing first. I've seen in the news, like in Finland, there's like 0 homeless because they attack it like this city is. Like there's a lot of problems being fixed here, and we have the ability to choose one that's working instead of grasping at straws like most places in our country. We can show you the numbers on a big level. Tonight, basic needs like not dying in the cold, there's like hundreds of people. We can give you the exact numbers, and we can multiply that obviously with more money. Unfortunately, the city works good together. Excited to see you guys accomplish this, hopefully on a bigger level. But with Lehigh, where I am, for example, I have the ability to work, have a social life, make good or bad decisions because I'm not spending my whole day just trying to stay alive in the warmth. So just keep with the basic needs. You know, it's up to us if we're going to fail or not, just like you. Get us inside, and we could take it from there in our lives. But without that, just that basic housing first, we all have the education enough to know that there's only 24 hours in a day. You know, I can't get a promotion or make good decisions if all I'm doing is pulling my stuff around, wondering if it's going to be okay. So if you can just keep doing what we're doing, maybe on a bigger level, a little more than 2% from what I heard this morning, we would have better numbers to show next time you have this meeting. Thanks for the time. And here's the other resident from our village.
I don't know what to say. Hi, my name is Raven. I live at Miracle Village. I originally came from Riverton. It's a church. It's basically like a park. Before that, I was on the street with my dog. So let's see, Riverton, I was in a tent for 2.5 years and without a door. So coming here was a godsend because now I have a door with a lock, 4 walls, no rats, and heat. So this place saved my life. So did Riverton with Pastor Jan, but this place is way better. I don't know what to say.
Thank you.
I'm not a very good speaker. Thank you for your time. And Mark's awesome.
Thank you.
And then Chair, I have one more person signed up for public comments, but I do want to note that we're at 10 minutes. Would you like me to proceed?
I'm sorry, say that again. I'm sorry.
So we are at the 10 minutes allotted for public comment. We still have a couple of folks signed up to make comment. And so up to you if you want to move forward with the meeting or continue in public comment, Chair.
I know we got started a little late. I don't know how that's gonna play out with the rest of our agenda. If there's no objections, I think we can take one more.
Chair, I have no objections, just speaking for myself. I don't have any objections. If you want to take a couple more, I'll defer to
Okay,
you.
that'll be
we-
fine.
Part of our job is listening and understanding their concerns, so I'm flexible, at least for me.
That'll work.
Next up, then we have Shanae Colston.
Hello, my name is Shanae Colston. I wear many hats in our community. I am on the racial and educational board for North Shore School District. I am a leadership member of the board of the LEC Lived Experience Coalition, and I'm the co-chair of the COC Policy Advisory Committee. Today, I'm here as Shanae Colston, the consumer of the same services I provide. And I'm just questioning again in regards to our 5-year plan that we've issued out to the public. In previous things and meetings, those 3 other entities have asked questions in regards to what the point in time count arithmetic was, who the person is, how they were hired, and so forth. And now we've taken that information and we've made it public. And we said that this is what we're basing the information on, is our 5-year plan. And so when those other entities are questioning the authenticity and the genuineness of that point in time count, as a public consumer, it's my concern that that's the what I'm being fed now when it's been questioned. I had made the same public comment back in the summer of this year in regards to the implementation board, asking that there be some oversight, some checks and balances to help us be all accountable for those things. And now we're at a time where that's what's being fed to not only us as providers, you guys here as the governing board, implementation, all these entities that we are collaborating together, but it's still being questioned into the authenticity and the realness of that data. And so I just want to bring that to light. Like, if we're pushing that to the public, we really needed to check ourselves and others in regards to the accuracy of that and what we're actually standing behind. And so I just, continue to question that. Again, I'm experiencing homeless. I've been homeless since June 21st of 2022. And it's getting expensive. You know what I'm saying? We got agencies that are paying over $20,000 to house me and my family in hotel rooms in and out of our car. I was asked to provide a picture of proof of me and my children sleeping in our vehicle as proof that I was homeless, even after I had 7 different providers write letters of verification of homelessness, including my own. So it's kind of dehumanizing, right? The fact that we're being asked as people who are experiencing homelessness in our community to provide proof of that by, again, me providing a visual picture of my kids with blankets in the back of a car.
Shanae, we're at time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Chair, our final speaker is Jonathan Hemphill. But I can't seem to find them to promote. There we go.
Hello, Governing Committee, fellow Governing Committee. I am confused and a little bit out of the loop. So my understanding on my position as the Governing Committee member part of the ILA is that you, as a person with lived experience, representing lived experience, one, you don't necessarily have to represent the Lived Experience Coalition, nor are you appointed, nor is your seat directly appointed by the Lived Experience Coalition. In the ILA, it is appointed by the COC board or the advisory board or the continuum of care, if not already created, with the recommendation of the recommendations of the Lived Experience Coalition. Now, in the bylaws, that was we had a great discussion about that, but at the end of the day, it is in fact within the ILA that you can't, that's the process. And so right now, all these other people that have not been confirmed by the COC board is a little bit confusing. And on top of that, within, if you go to the interlocal agreement, page 17, line 242, the governing committee represent members representing individual lived experience shall serve until replaced by the advisory committee. I have not had the pleasure of being told by the advisory committee nor anyone representing that my position was a leave And currently standing, I am the only legal person that has gone through the application, the interview process and the confirmation process to be on the governing committee representing people with lived experience. I don't know what's going on. I did speak to a former governing committee member named Kirk McLean, and he said that he had never given permission by Lamont Green to represent him as an alternate for his position on the governing committee as well. And so it's just a lot of things going on. I would hope that as it stands right now, just to make sure that everything isn't messy and everything's all together, I want you guys to push to put pause on any sort of voting
Jonathan, we're at time. Thank you.
until this is rectified.
And Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. I just want to go back a little bit and correct a mistake that I made earlier. I did not do the land acknowledgement. I'd like to do that now before we move on to the budget. We acknowledge that King County is located on unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples. We honor this land and its people, past and present, and we are committed to directing funding and resources to organizations led by and in support of Native and Indigenous people. Okay. And we will now hear the presentation from the KCRHA staff on the proposed 2023 budget and have the opportunity to vote on that budget.
Chair, may I offer in support of the agenda a quick motion that someone make a quick motion to rearrange the agenda so that the budget is first.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion. This is Mayor Bernie, to reorganize the agenda to take the budget conversation prior to the 5-year plan presentation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion is so carried, and we will adopt that particular portion. And now, thank you, Mark and Mayor Bernie. We will now hear a presentation from the KCRHA staff of the proposed 2023 budget and have the opportunity to vote on that budget.
Great. I will go ahead and get going unless, Mark, you wanted to say a few words before we get started.
Just to say that I think this is important for the public to hear, given some of the conversations that just happened, and particularly given that this involves a vote, that both Chair McWhorter and Member Green are designated alternates. And so they have been appointed to this body. They are legally able to take this vote. And I just want to be very clear about that. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so I'm looking forward to sharing our budget with you today. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. So this is the presentation of our the KCRHA 2023 final budget. As Mark mentioned, this is, you all were involved in the development of our proposal earlier this year, and this is the result of a process that that considered that proposal, and we'll present you with the results of that. We'll be talking about the timeline, what got us here, our final budget, and then recommending adoption of the budget itself. So the timeline, as I just said, the implementation board and the governing committee adopted a budget request and authorized us to submit that request to the city of Seattle and King County, our current funders. In September of 2022, the county executive and Seattle mayor released their budget proposals for King County and the city of Seattle, respectively. In November 2022, the King County Council and the Seattle City Council adopted the final budget with some modifications that were made by those bodies. And now in December 2022, the implementation board and the governing committee are being requested to adopt the final budget, which really is an acceptance of the outcome of those deliberative processes. Just based on it's been really great to see the governing board and the implementation committee very engaged with these materials, and based on some questions that we had of the first version of this slide deck that we put out, we've added some background and context information to sort of help put the vote today into perspective. And so wanted to kind of lay out sort of three main components or key components of our budget. We have a base budget, which is activities that are supported with ongoing funding. So funding in the base budget is generally assumed to continue from year to year. And so our presentation of the budget focuses on changes and additional funding over and above that base funding. We have continued one-time funding, and this is really kind of an artifact of large amounts of one-time funding that came to the city and the county as a result of the coronavirus relief efforts. These are going to specific programs across multiple years, but will expire in 23 or 24. Incremental changes are changes over and above that ongoing funding. Just as a reminder, our budget is provided through contracts with various departments at the city and the county and the state and private foundations. And we also have our base funding is really contracts that we received from the city and the county that were previously contracted through the city and the county and transitioned to the RHA in 2022. We have, and then once the 5-year plan is approved and pursuant to the interlocal agreement, the KCRHA will redesign and rebid the entire system, including services that are currently funded with base funding in our budget. Oops, hold on a second. Sorry, I'm having some issues with my screen. Okay. Our 2023 budget request is here. This is the funding that was requested. Just for some context, our base funding, our continued one-time funding, and our operating budget. And then we have priority incremental changes and additional incremental changes that were requested at that time. So our final budget has that continued base funding and also incremental changes that were approved by the city of Seattle and King County relative to various programs that are listed here, and also the State Department of Commerce funding for right-of-way work as well. This is just a very zoomed out version of the budget itself with, again, our base funding, our operations, the RHA operations, City of Seattle and King County incremental changes, and a portion of those incremental changes are included in our operation and administration and direct services budget. And so the number is a little bit higher on later slides. And then the Department of Commerce right-of-way funding. So this is our overall budget. We have the next part of the presentation is really focused on different slices or cuts on the funding, so you can see how it's being used and what the sources are. So this breaks down our budget by program expenditure. And just a reminder that these expenditures were largely determined in the base funding that we received from the city and the county, but those program expenditures will change as the 5-year plan is implemented and the system is rebid. The RHA's operations, admin, and direct services funding includes one-time funding as well, mostly through the Department of Commerce right-of-way funding. This is sort of a comparison between what I don't want to zoom out, but I can't get this whole thing on the screen. Sorry. Oh wait, this is better. Okay. This is sort of a side-by-side between what was approved in 2022, what we requested for 2023, and what we received for 2023. So you can see here, there's a little bit of overlap. There's a lot of funding that was provided for additional services beyond what we had requested. And then our total budget for 2023 now is that you'll be voting on today is $253 million. Here's a breakdown in detail, a little bit more detail of our administrative budget. And here is the sort of detail on those incremental changes that we had discussed. So it's important here to note that a lot, because we are considering this, needing to consider it before the end of the year, once the budget is adopted, there's a whole lot of staff work that happens behind the scenes to really nail down what the exact numbers are in different categories of funds. And so as an example, here we have funding, for example, that was approved for provider inflation that was actually approved for all of the provider contracts that the Seattle Human Services Department and the County Department of Health Services, that for all of those contracts that provide homeless services. Most of those come to the RHA, but some are retained by the city and the county. And so we won't have the exact breakdown of funding that was approved for provider inflation that is coming to us until the city and the county do the final allocation and apportionment work that they're doing now. That's true for the provider wage increase for the city and the county. And then another thing that was things are getting worked out, and we recently learned that the HEN funding coming from King County will, of this 28 million total, about 23 million will be coming to the RHA. And so this is sort of what that looks like. Our final number here would be about 59 million in 2023. The other thing is today you're voting on the 2023 budget, and we will be using these numbers as a basis for our 2024 conversation that will start in the spring. So just something to note there. Moving on to, this is our budget by funding source. This is the program-based budget by funding source. So this is those funds that we receive on an ongoing basis. And then actually something else I wanted to note back on this slide, I apologize, is if you see here, we have ongoing and one-time designations. This on any funding here that is noted to be ongoing will actually show up next year in our base for 2024. And so that is just an important thing to keep in mind when we are going into the discussions for the 2024 budget. A lot of this money will be folded into the base next year. And this is our admin budget by funding source, similarly to the last slide that had our program budget by funding source. And lastly, this is the breakdown of funding from the Washington State Department of Commerce right-of-way funding. And our final budget, again, that zoomed out version. And then again, I would just note that that this is sort of with the updated HEN number, this is what that looks like. So with that, we are open for discussion on this information, and I will stop sharing my screen. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, Mick. Any questions from any members?
I'll go first if I may, Chair. This is a governing committee, Harold. Remember? Myself here. Am I off mute? Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, Mayor.
So to the extent next year we have some good news and ILAs are being drafted with other partners and they come in with some funds, even if they're nominal or significant, what will be the process by which we add those? Will we do like a supplemental budget review, or you just inform us where the money is going under these headlines? Can you sort of walk me through what, assuming we get some good news in 2023, and I'm always looking for good news, can you sort of tell me what may happen relative to this budget that we're considering approving?
Thanks, Mayor. That's a really good question. And the answer is there is not a defined process because it hasn't happened before. So I think our team is looking at the relevant requirements in the interlocal agreement, and then also at the relevant RCWs with regard to audits to figure out what authorization we would need. I know that the contemplated ILA with our North King County cities, similar to the discussions that we have had to date with King County, with the city of Seattle, also have programs that they're looking to sustain or types of programming that they're looking to sustain. And so I think that the likelihood in terms of authorization is that once that ILA is executed, I think that we would then look to move that through a regular meeting of the implementation board and, fingers crossed, a regular meeting of the governing committee. If we needed to call a special meeting in order to get that approval, we would obviously look to do so in a very can we convene for an hour to do this thing and not, take up a ton of time. I think it does call into question, though, Mayor, as the authority continues to expand, what authority, as is legally allowable, this governing committee might want to more fully delegate to the implementation board, so that the expenditure of dollars, right, that come in through new ILAs, et cetera, is not being tethered to getting you all together. I think that the hope that I've heard from many of you actually is to return to a more ordinary number of meetings per year, which is, I see you all nodding, which is, per the ILA, only quarterly. So I think that's a question, and it really it depends on the comfort of this body with, how you want to approach that as the authority continues to grow over the next 2 years.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Mark. I'll ask one or two questions too, but I don't want to hog up the Q&A time. So my initial feedback on this, by the way, is it's very easy to understand. I like the manner with which it's presented. A little fast, I'm flipping